Revealed, how a heartwarming gift of whiskey from my son led to an incredible life-changing moment. Tom sat alone in his living room, the faint glow of the Christmas lights outside shining through the frosted window panes. The townsfolk of Rivertown hung tinsel and adorned their houses, but for him, the season felt empty. At 62, a factory worker and proud Vietnam veteran, he had spent his life working hard, hoping to build something good for his two sons, Jake and Andrew. But with the factory closing down and the economy in shambles, dreams shattered like glass. The recent misunderstandings with Jake stung deep, leaving a raw ache where family connection used to be. He sighed, thinking to himself how every year he would look forward to the holidays, but now they felt like a cruel reminder of what was lost. Just as he resigned to another night of solitude, a knock echoed through the hallway. Tom's heart raced. Who could be visiting? To his astonishment, there stood Jake, framed in the doorway with a shy smile and a beautiful bottle of handcrafted whiskey. "Hey, Dad," Jake said softly, the bottle cradled in his hands like a precious gem. In that moment, the sight of the familiar whiskey stirred memories of laughter, warmth, and late-night conversations shared between father and son. It felt like a lifeline thrown in the midst of a heavy ocean of dissatisfaction. Tom's chest tightened. He gestured for Jake to come inside, and both settled onto the well-worn couch. It was a quiet tribute to countless family gatherings in happier times. Moments slipped into a revealing rhythm as they poured the amber liquid into two glasses, a bridge over the gulf of silence that had grown between them. With each sip, the air brightened, and the walls of resentment began to crack. "Remember, Dad, that summer we tried to make our own whiskey?" Jake chuckled, the sound swaying like a comforting blanket over heightened tensions. Tom nodded, recalling the sticky mess they made, the laughter that rolled through the air. But as they laughed, the conversation veered into murky territory, unearthing past grievances they had both buried deep down, Tom's pride, Jake's feelings of inadequacy as the disappointment. The atmosphere shifted, and just then, a news alert blared from the television. The factory's closure was final. The community felt the weight of that loss, and their entire world seemed to shift beneath their feet. Tom felt the surge of panic wash over him. "What will happen to us, Jake?" he asked, voice strained. Before they could grapple with the ramifications, emotions exploded. They launched verbal jabs, painful truths that clawed at the heart of their relationship. Tom felt regret surge within him, and Jake's frustration radiated into the room, filling the space with anguish. Just when they could have found common ground, clouds of hurt yanked them apart instead. At that moment, a deafening silence thrummed between them. Could they really bridge this chasm? Together, they stood at a precipice, raw emotions shadowing over them like dark clouds as Tom stared at the bittersweet whiskey bottle between them. Would it be the conduit back to family, or just another reminder of what they lost? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Time lingered heavily in the air. The weight of their confrontation loomed large, yet a subtle flicker of hope sparked within Tom. Conversation lay just below the surface, waiting to burst forth, but the question remained, could they summon the courage to tread the painful path towards healing? The struggle was far from over. And as Tom reflected on his unresolved feelings towards his son, he braced himself for the emotional journey ahead. The answers lay just beyond reach, hovering in the crisp winter air of Rivertown, leaving father and son tangled in uncertainty. The silence hung like a thick fog, pressing in on both men, amplifying unsaid fears and regrets. Tom's heart raced as he glanced at Jake, whose youthful features were shadowed with an adult's weight of disappointment. Tom felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to connect, but doubt twisted his thoughts like a coiling vine. "Jake," he finally managed, feeling his throat tighten, "I never wanted you to feel like you were a disappointment. The admission floated in the air, heavy with vulnerability, yet it felt good to voice it. Jake exhaled, his shoulders dropping slightly. "I guess I always thought you did," he replied, his voice a mix of sadness and resolve. "Every time I didn't meet your expectations, it felt like I was failing you. And then with the factory closing, it was just another reminder of how I couldn't make things better." Tom winced, the raw insight hitting him like a splash of cold water. It was a truth he had avoided for far too long, the burden of his own expectations falling onto Jake like a heavy cloak. I thought if I pushed you, you'd find your way. But I see now that I pushed too hard," he admitted, the weight of years flooding into his words. "Aren't we all just trying to find our way?" Jake muttered almost to himself, his gaze fixated on the whiskey glass. It was then that Tom noticed the tremor in his son's hands. Jake wasn't just struggling with his own feelings, he was wrestling with the painful truth of their fractured relationship. The shadows of the past felt less suffocating as vulnerability wrapped around them like a fragile thread. Tom took a deep breath, letting the coolness of the room wash over him. "It's okay to struggle, Jake. I've stumbled more times than I can count. And I want to share that with you, not just as a father, but as your ally." The silence began to crack, slowly, piece by piece. Jake's eyes met Tom's, and for the first time in a long while, there was a glimmer of understanding. "Maybe, we've both been carrying burdens alone," Jake suggested, shifting closer. The space between them seemed to shrink, like the forgotten warmth of a family gathering flickering back to life. Tom raised his glass, an unspoken truce forming in the air. "To sharing our burdens, then. And to finding a way to build something better," he said, his voice steady with hope. As they clicked their glasses together, the sound resonated like a bell signaling a new beginning. With each sip, the bitterness began to fade, replaced by the warmth of connection. Laughter bubbled up again, filling the room with lightness as they began to reminisce about their childhood antics, fishing trips, camping under the stars, and the time they tried to cook pancakes and nearly burned the kitchen down. But even as they shared the joy of those memories, there was a deeper awareness emerging, a realization that moving forward would require honesty and risk. Conflicts needed resolution, love needed unpacking. The moments grew more intimate, vulnerable stories spilling forth, painting a picture of men struggling against life's disappointments yet yearning for connection. Painful truths laid bare, fears explored, and expectations redefined. Tom wanted to be the father Jake deserved, not the pedestal he had mistakenly tried to maintain. As the evening wore on, laughter echoed off walls painted with memories of love and struggle. But amid the warmth, a new chill crept through the air as a knock came at the door. They froze, exchanging nervous glances. Who could it be? The weight of unresolved tension hung like a shadow. The night was shifting again, perhaps leading down a new path. What would this new presence mean for everything they had begun to mend? Tom's heart thudded in his chest. He exchanged a quick glance with Jake, whose eyes had widened with apprehension. The warmth from their earlier connection felt distant now, as if a chill breeze had swept through the room, shattering the fragile peace they had begun to build. Should we see who it is?" Tom asked, the words stumbling out of his mouth as he fought to shake off the sudden tension. Jake hesitated, his grip tightening around the whiskey glass. "Do we have to?" Jake replied, his voice a mix of curiosity and fear. "Maybe it's just the neighbor," Tom suggested, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "I'll get it." With a deep breath, he moved toward the door, each step slow and deliberate. A knot formed in his stomach. He counted to 3 in his head and opened it. The evening air rushed in, cold and sharp. There stood a figure, silhouetted against the porch light, a familiar face from years gone by. It was Carl, an old friend of the family. The once bright spark of youth in Carl's eyes was now shadowed by hardship, yet it was no less piercing. "Hey, Tom. Long time, no see," he said with a thick accent, his voice breaking slightly as he stepped forward. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by." Tom's heart sank. Memories of shared laughter over backyard barbecues flooded back to him, but they were quickly overshadowed by the reality of their fading friendship. Yeah, it's been a while, Carl, he replied warily. Mind if I come in? Carl asked, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his worn coat. Tom hesitated before stepping aside, allowing him entry. Jake stood frozen in place, eyeing Carl like he was a ghost. What is he doing here? He whispered to Tom, his voice a mix of confusion and wariness. Let us just hear him out, Tom replied quietly, anxious. The air grew heavier, memories of their shared history pressing down on him like a weight. Once inside, Carl surveyed the room. Old photographs lined the walls and aging furniture gave way to nostalgia. Wow, you've really kept this place cozy, he remarked, forcing a smile that hid his discomfort. Thanks, Tom said, trying to match the sincerity. He led Carl to the living room, where the remnants of their earlier laughter lingered like warm embers in the air, a stark contrast to Carl's troubled demeanor. Everything all right? Tom asked, the question hanging in the air, heavy with unsaid intentions. Carl let out a deep breath. We've all been through it, right? He gestured toward the whiskey. Caught the news about the factory. Thought it'd be good to see you and reconnect. Jake's expression tightened, a mix of skepticism and anger. Reconnect? After all this time? What do you want? Jake, Tom warned, sensing the tension slipping once more, like threads ready to unravel. I just thought maybe we could talk, Carl replied, taking a tentative step forward. I know I'm not the best at reaching out. I made mistakes, just like you both. Mistakes. The word echoed through the room, reverberating with weight. It reminded Tom of his own shortfalls, the very mistakes he was trying to mend with Jake, and now here was Carl, a ghost from that past, uninvited with his own burdens. Maybe it's time we all addressed a few things, Tom remarked, feeling the weight of those words settle between them. Carl looked between Tom and Jake, an understanding dawning on him. You've got a good heart, son, he said, directing his words at Jake. Believe me, I've been where you are. It's tough to face it, but healing starts with honesty. As silence blanketed the room, deep thoughts coiled within Jake's mind, a storm brewing behind his eyes. Tom felt the tension escalate. This encounter had turned into something unexpected, and he could feel the air shifting once again. Honesty. Jake muttered, glancing from his father to Carl, uncertainty etched on his face. What do you even know about honesty? And like a fuse igniting, the night threatened to spiral into another reckoning. What truths remained buried? Would Carl's unexpected presence offer the answers they needed or more challenges ahead? The air hung thick with anticipation, the future uncertain as they collectively faced the darkness and finally sought the light. The silence in the room felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in on them while the questions hung in the air, begging for answers. Tom could feel his heart pounding and every heartbeat reminded him of how fragile this moment was. He stole a glance at Jake, whose face was a mix of defiance and confusion as he grappled with Carl's sudden return. Honesty? Right. Spare me the speech, Jake snapped, his voice sharper now. What kind of honesty can you offer? Just take a look at your life, man. You're not exactly the poster boy for truth. Carl flinched at the words, his face paling slightly. I know I haven't been around. But I'm here for a reason. We all have things we're trying to deal with. He looked at Tom, hoping for some backup, some sign that they could steer the conversation to a softer ground. Tom stepped in, trying to bridge the gap. Jake, maybe we should listen. Carl's trying to reach out. Just can we see where this goes? Jake's jaw tightened, an internal battle reflected in his eyes. And what if we regret it? He shot back. What if this just brings up all the bad stuff? It might, but it could help too, Tom replied, taking a deep breath. Sometimes confronting the past is the only way to set things right. Jake blinked rapidly, the tension between them thickening. Fine, he said, finally relenting. But if this goes south I promise to leave if it does, Carl said quickly, almost too eager, there was something about the desperation in Carl's voice that struck a chord with Tom. He hadn't realized how much he missed the old warmth of their friendship, buried now under years of silence. "You remember the summer of '98? Tom asked suddenly, trying to lighten the mood. "The three of us at the lake?" Carl nodded slowly, a smile creeping onto his face, though it was tinged with sadness. "Yeah, we were crazy back then. I remember Jake throwing that rock at your head." Jake couldn't help but laugh, the heavy atmosphere lightening just a touch. "You deserved it for trying to outswim me." The flicker of connection was brief, but it was enough to remind everyone why they once cared. Yet the past was waiting, lurking in the corners of their minds, patiently ready to pounce. "Things have changed," Carl said, his tone more serious now. "Life threw us all some curves. I messed up my share too. But I want to make it right, not just for me, but for the two of you." "What do you mean?" Tom asked gently, sensing the shift. Carl shifted uncomfortably but pressed on. "After I left town, I made some bad choices. I lost my family, the one thing that mattered to me most. I thought I could throw myself into work and well, you see where that got me. But I realized it's time to face my demons. It starts here, tonight." The raw honesty in Carl's voice crackled in the air. Tom felt Jake tense again, but there was something else, something very human, emerging. "And what if you don't?" Jake shot back, crossing his arms, although Tom could see it was less about fighting and more about settling the storm brewing in his heart. Carl looked at Jake, directly and with conviction. "Then I guess I'll just keep running. But I don't want to run anymore. I need to confront this, face the mistakes I made. We all have our shadows. Don't you want to shine a light on yours?" Suddenly, Jake's exterior softened, vulnerability seeping through. "Shining a light on it, it's scary. What if we don't like what we find? What if you do?" Carl asked quietly. The room fell silent again as the weight of those words settled upon them, but right then, the moment shattered as the front door creaked open again. This time, it wasn't just the wind that blew in, it was someone else. Tom's heart dropped again as he turned to see another face from the past stepping into the room. Would this somehow bring clarity, or was it just another storm about to break? As the door swung open wider, the figure that entered took a moment to register. It was Sarah, Jake's younger sister, her hair cascading in waves over her shoulders, a gentle smile struggling beneath the weight of years. "Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, her voice softer than Tom remembered. The atmosphere shifted once more. It was like the air had expanded, filled with echoes of their shared history. Jake's expression changed right before Tom's eyes. Gone was the pent-up anger, what replaced it was a flood of memories and the softening touch of lost family. Sarah stepped further in, rubbing her arms as if trying to shake off a chill. She noticed the tension and glanced between her brother, Carl, and Tom, sensing the heartache but not wholly aware of it. "What is going on? Are we reminiscing about the good old days?" She attempted, forcing a light laugh, though it didn't reach her eyes. Carl seized the moment, stepping forward. "Sarah, we were just talking about the past, about how we all fell apart." His voice was steady, but Tom noticed the tremor underlining the carefully chosen words. Sarah's brow furrowed. "Fell apart?" It was more like an explosion. Her gaze, focused on Jake, was intent and full of concern. "I wanted to check on you. I felt like, well, it's hard to explain. Can we talk?" There was a pause. Jake shifted, glancing between Sarah and Carl. "Yeah, sure," he said, his voice a bit hollow. "But first, Carl, you need to say more." Tom could see they were all on the precipice, caught between what they craved and what they feared. "Sarah," maybe he started but quickly silenced his own words when he saw the look in Carl's eyes. "Actually, I'd like to say something," Carl interjected, taking a deep breath. "Sarah, I know I hurt everyone. Leaving was not something I am proud of." He met her gaze, and there was a flicker of old warmth beneath the pain. It wasn't easy for me, either, but I want to atone for my mistakes. Is this why you've come back? Sarah interrupted, her voice rising slightly with equal parts hope and skepticism. To play the good guy after all this time? That's not the intention, Carl replied, struggling like a swimmer facing rough seas. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to help. But I need you all to see that the past doesn't have to dictate our future. Tom felt a surge of urgency pass through the group, inspiring courage in the air. Maybe some of us need to let go before we can move ahead, he said softly, glancing at Jake, hoping for some support. But if we keep holding on, it might crush us instead. A thick silence rested upon them again, heavy with unreleased grief and unspoken fears. Time seemed to stall as each fought with their ghosts, wrestling between what was known and what was yet to be unveiled. I didn't want to break your hearts, to leave you like that, Carl continued, his eyes pleading with honesty. But I thought you deserved better than the mess I had become. Jake took a shaky breath, exhaling through clenched teeth. So what now? We just let bygones be bygones, shake hands, and act like everything is fine. What if we didn't? What if we actually faced the truth? Sarah suggested, her expression firm yet caring. Tom stood silently, watching them all grapple with their uncertain emotions, not quite knowing what his role should be. Yet he felt a glimmer of hope emerge through the clouds. Would confronting the past give them all a chance to heal, or would this merely unleash a stronger storm? Just then, the sound of a phone vibrating broke through the heavy atmosphere. It buzzed persistently on the table. Tom instinctively reached for it, not entirely certain what it would bring, but as he glanced down at the screen, his heart dropped once more. The name that flashed across it was one he had desperately hoped not to see. Would this add clarity to their situation, or further entangle their lives in sorrow? Tom's hand trembled as he held the phone, the name flashing like a warning. Megan. Memories surged back, sharp as a knife, laughter shared over coffee, secrets whispered in the dead of night, the way she used to smile at him like he was home. What is it? Jake asked, his voice laced with curiosity and suspicion as he leaned in closer. Tom hesitated, glancing at Sarah and Carl. Their expressions shifted, a mix of concern and intrigue. The air thickened once again, the tension wrapping around them like a dense fog. It's from Megan, he admitted finally, his heart racing. She wants to talk. Jake's brow furrowed, the fleeting look of surprise quickly solidifying into uncertainty. Talk? After all this time? Yeah. Tom struggled to keep his voice steady. She says it's important. Important? Sarah echoed, her tone trailing off. Or dangerous? Isn't everything right now? Tom shot back, more sharply than he intended. He could feel the weight of their gazes pressing down on him. Carl clenched his jaw, and for a moment, the room was silent again, each of them caught in their own web of history. Maybe it's a mistake to engage with the past, Carl finally said, his voice low. But maybe it's exactly what we need. The possibilities hung in the air, every word filled with risk and potential. Tom had been running from his past, shielding himself from the fallout left by Megan's sudden departure. But now, with her name spoken out loud, he felt the walls he'd put up begin to crumble. What if you don't answer? Jake suggested, an edge creeping into his voice. What if it just leads to more hurt? Tom met his brother's gaze, the familiarity of their bond pressing heavily on him. And what if it's a chance to heal? I don't know if healing is possible, Jake whispered, looking down at his hands. Not with everything that's happened. With a steadying breath, Tom ran a hand through his hair. You're right. But I have to try. I can't keep living this way, trapped by choices I didn't make. Then do it, Sarah urged, her voice rising with unexpected strength. Face it and face her. You might be surprised. Tom nodded slowly. He could feel a mixture of hope and fear coiling within him. I'll call her. But I want all of you here with me. Here. Carl raised an eyebrow. You want us to sit in on your conversation? It's not just my past, is it? He replied, glancing between them. Not after everything. We've all danced around each other for too long. If I'm going to face my mistakes, I need to know we're all together in this. Sarah took a step closer, her expression softening. Okay, let us do it. We'll face it together. As he set the phone down, Tom felt an unexpected surge of courage. It was both terrifying and liberating, a step toward stepping out of shadows. In that moment, unfamiliar voices echoed back, the shared laughter, the arguments, the countless moments of love and loss that he inhaled deeply, summoning the strength to confront what lay ahead. With a shake in his voice, he lifted his phone once more. The screen illuminated his determination. Before he dialed, however, the door creaked open again, causing all eyes to dart toward the entryway. Who could that be now? Just as a figure stepped into view, Tom's heart raced once more, a mixture of dread and anticipation swirling within him. What awaited them next? Was it an unexpected ally, or a harbinger of more trouble? The figure stepping into the room was familiar, yet completely unexpected. It was their father, an anchor of warmth among the swirling uncertainties of Tom's life. His presence filled the space, instilling a sense of nostalgia and an underlying tension. Tom felt a momentary wave of comfort, instinctively welcoming the calm his father usually brought. Dad? Tom blinked, surprised and unsure if he should feel relieved or overwhelmed. What are you doing here? Their father stood framed in the doorway, a gentle but revealing smile resting on his lips. I brought some coffee, he said, looking around at the others. Figured this might be a long night. The gesture was small, yet it meant a lot. It was their father's way of recognizing the weight of the situation without needing to dive into its depths. Tom could feel the tension dissipate slightly, as if the warmth of the coffee could melt some of the icy barriers he'd built around his heart. Thanks. Tom took a cup from his father's hand and took a moment to absorb the fleeting normalcy. As he sipped, he noticed the way his father's brows knitted, sensing the air of anticipation that hung palpably. What is going on? Their father asked, his tone pulled taut with concern. Tom let out a breath, the taste of coffee bittersweet on his tongue. It's about Megan. She reached out, wants to talk. At the mention of her name, a flicker of concern crossed their father's face, his brow furrowing deeper. Is that wise? It's been so long. Tom could feel Jake's stare intensifying. That's what we're trying to figure out, he replied, quieter now, the weight of his father's worry settling heavier on his shoulders. Sometimes, the past can be too heavy to carry, their father offered, glancing between the siblings with a knowing look. But it can also be an opportunity. Sometimes it's worth taking a risk. Those words landed with gentle impact, a reminder that every family has its burdens, but resilience lies in facing them together. I want to call her, Tom stated with newfound resolve. But I need you all here. It's only fair. Well, if it will bring you peace, their dad said, stepping further into the room, then we'll face it as a family. As they all settled down, father and siblings encircling Tom like a protective barrier, the atmosphere shifted. The heaviness was still there, but it was lightened by a shared commitment to support one another. So, with a trembling hand, Tom unlocked his phone again, the screen showing Megan's name waiting to be tapped. Just as he was about to press call, the phone pinged, startling him. It was a message from Megan, the words dancing on the screen like a heart beating nervously. Tom, please. I need you to hear me out. It's important. Tom's heart raced. What had happened in those years of silence? What did she want to say that was so urgent? He glanced at Jake and the others, the unspoken questions hanging thick in the air. Are you ready? Jake whispered, his voice as shaky as Tom felt. There was no turning back now. With a deep breath, Tom took in the faces around him, each one a beacon of support. I am, he whispered back, but uncertainty clouded the words. He hit dial, bracing himself for what could emerge from the other end. As the call connected, silence engulfed the room. Would this be the moment of reconciliation, or was he stumbling into a trap built from years of pent-up pain? "Hello." Megan's voice came through, tentative yet familiar. And behind that simple greeting lay an entire history, full of hope and hurt, crafted over years apart. What would her first words reveal? Tom felt the pulse of his heart echo within the walls of that room, ready for whatever was about to unfold. But before he could respond, another sound cut through the air, a loud crash from outside, shaking the very foundations of their moment. What now? What chaos awaited them outside? The crash jolted everyone in the room. Tom instinctively flinched, his hand tightening around the phone. The crack had sounded like shattering glass, a barrier breaking, or some form of chaos spilling forth. He glanced toward the window, shadows dancing as headlights flickered ominously through the pane. "Did you hear that?" Jake murmured, his eyes darting towards the back door. The brothers exchanged glances loaded with uncertainty. "Let me check," their father said, his voice steady despite the unease that swept through the siblings. He walked towards the door, opening it just enough to peer outside. In that brief moment, Tom felt trapped between two worlds, the pulse of his past echoing through the phone and the unsettling reality outside. The silence that had hung in the room was now shattered by the roar of uncertainty, and he felt a familiar anxiety rising in his chest. "Dad," Tom called softly, his voice breaking through the unstable air, "what is happening out there?" Their father stepped back inside, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. "There's a car accident. Looks like a couple of kids were involved," he said, glancing to the side as if he could still see the scene unfolding. "Emergency services are on their way." Tom's heartbeat quickened, not just from the shock of the crash but from the fear igniting inside him. Could this be another reminder of loss? His thoughts darted back to all the wrong turns, the missed connections, and the moments that had slipped through their fingers like sand. "Do you think they're okay?" Jake asked, his voice trembling slightly. "I hope so," their father replied, placing a steadying hand on Jake's shoulder. "You all stay here. I'll go see what I can do." Tom felt a rush of panic. "No. Dad, you should stay with us." He clutched the phone tighter, the only lifeline he had to Megan, who still waited on the other end. "We don't know what we're dealing with," their father insisted, his gaze firm but warm. "I'll be right back. Just wait here." As their father stepped outside, Tom's resolve began to waver again. The connection with Megan was still live. Her voice crackled softly in his ear, waiting, but now noise filled the room, his thoughts scattering like autumn leaves in a storm. "Megan?" He managed to squeeze out, his voice shaky. "Tom, are you there?" Her tone was laced with that same tension and echo of their shared past. "I'm here. Something just happened outside," he explained, urgency creeping into his words. Is everything all right on your end?" "Not really," she replied, her voice thickening with emotion. "I need to tell you about something important, something that happened after we lost touch." Tom's heart pounded anew. "What do you mean?" But thoughts of his father, the accident, and the memories they used to share pressed tightly against his chest. "I didn't want to disturb you, but I think you deserve to know the truth. It all ties back to that night, Tom." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, swirling around him like the dance of shadows in flickering light. Just as he was about to urge her to continue, her voice cracked. "I thought I could handle it alone," but a sharp scream pierced the air outside, the chaos felt like it was pulling him apart. Is this what life had become? A series of traps laid out to ensnare the unprepared? "Megan, wait!" Tom's voice was barely above a whisper as fear gripped him again. "Tell me what happened." But another crash silenced everything, distant yet so close, reverberating through the very fabric of the room. Tom's mind raced. Was he caught in a web that tied together their shared past and the unfolding present? The door swung open, and their father hurried back in, panic etched on his face. We need to. A second scream echoed outside, louder this time. An urgency had descended. Tom. Megan's voice pulled him back, fierce through the static. You need to understand. I didn't just reach out for nothing. I'm scared about what this will mean, what truth lay ahead. Tom's heart raced with equal parts fear and determination. The stakes had never been higher, and he had to know. Tell me, he urged, anchoring himself to the moment, wondering just how deep those connections ran now. Tom's breath caught in his throat as he waited. Every sound outside seemed to reverberate through his very bones. His father was standing at the threshold, eyes wide, grasping the door as if it were the only thing keeping him tethered to reality. Dad, what? Just stay back, Tom. His father snapped, the worry in his voice slicing through the haze. It was unlike him to raise his voice, which only heightened Tom's tension. He could see Jake's face turning pale, mirroring his own unease. The sirens blared in the distance, growing louder, cutting through the night like a knife. Tom could feel the vibrations in his chest, the reality of danger creeping closer. His thoughts leaped back to Megan's voice, urging him to listen, to understand. Megan, he choked out, but the static crackled again, and he couldn't make sense of the chaos around him. Please. Tom, this is important. She pressed, and he could almost hear her swallowing away fear. I don't know how to say this, but that night, Tom, we need to go outside. His father's tone was urgent. He stepped in closer, pulling Tom's focus back to the present. What is going on? Is it serious? Tom's voice caught as he scanned the room nervously. Just trust me, his father replied, the firmness in his voice battling the visible fear grasping the boys. I think some kids are hurt. We need to help. But no. His father cut him off, his eyes hardening with a father's protectiveness. You can't. The sudden sound of shuffling feet drew their attention. They turned collectively to see the next-door neighbors peeking around the corner, their faces etched with concern. The panic was contagious. Do you need help? Mrs. Jenkins called out. We heard the crash. Is everyone all right? Tom glanced back at the phone, the connection with Megan still alive but now feeling far away. What truth was he missing? Would it be there when the frantic chaos of the night subsided? Megan, I need you to wait, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I'll be right back. He pocketed the phone, where he had tucked away all the heavy emotions of the past year. It was time to draw strength from family, from the present. He couldn't let fear paralyze him. He needed answers, but maybe understanding also meant confronting what was happening now. Let us go, son, his father urged, guiding him toward the door, Jake trailing behind them, the air crackling with tension. As they stepped out, the cool night air hit Tom's face hard. He looked down the street, outlined by flashing lights and worried voices. It looked like something out of a nightmare, cars bent like pretzels and a crowd forming like storm clouds over the carnage. His heart sank at the sight and the reality settled in. Where did you say they were? His father called over to a neighbor who was rushing towards them. Over there, shouted Mr. Thompson, pointing to a small group of kids gathered a few feet away from the wreck. The fear in their eyes mirrored that which had been lurking inside Tom, but there was a collective resilience there too. Stay close to me, his father instructed. Tom nodded, determined to stay beside them, but his gaze was still drawn to the flashing lights and the echoes of sirens. The world around them moved in a blur, but in that eye of chaos, Tom felt a twinge of resolve. Megan, he whispered under his breath, knowing that she had opened a door to something deeper. He had to keep that connection alive. As he drew closer to the cluster of voices, a piercing wail shattered the air. He froze. Was it one of the kids? A sudden thought gripped him. Would this night change everything? He could feel his heart racing again, the weight of choices pressing down on him. Looking back toward the house, he thought of his past, of Megan's words, and the truth that dangled like a thread between them. Tom, a voice broke through the noise, breaking his reverie. He turned, meeting the eyes of one of the kids from the crowd, shocked and shaking. Help! We need help now. Would he step forward into this new reality, or would he hesitate at the brink of the unknown? Tom's heart felt like it was about to burst. In that moment, fear mingled with a spark of courage igniting in his chest. As the crowd shifted around him, his instincts kicked in. Life had taught him to confront adversity head-on, to lend a hand to those in need. Wouldn't it be wrong to falter now, especially when faced with the prospect of loss echoing back to the pain of his own past? Let us go! He shouted, cutting through the haze of chaos. He turned to his father, whose jaw was set with determination, and Jake, who was processing the urgency drenching the atmosphere. They moved as one, seeking out the source of the cries, wrapping their family bond around them like a protective shield. Together, they maneuvered through the flurry of onlookers, firefighters, and flashing lights, tension crackling in the cool air of the night. As they approached the group of kids gathered around the damaged car, Tom felt the familiar pang of memories of all the times he wanted to make things right, of lost opportunities that loomed over him like a dark cloud. But now, right here, he had a chance to reclaim something, a chance to confront the chaos that life sometimes dealt. Stand back. Give them some space. Shouted one of the paramedics, urgency in his voice as he knelt by a body sprawled on the ground. Tom felt his breath hitch at the sight of the young kid, seemingly no older than Jake. The spark of life in their eyes flickered in desperation. Is he? Jake whispered, but his voice trailed off. Fear clouded his gaze. I'm not sure, the paramedic called back, focusing intently on the task at hand. But we need all hands on deck here. Emotion welled up in Tom's chest as he witnessed the struggle. He hadn't been able to save his connection with Megan in time. Could he save this boy now? The thought ignited a fierce determination inside him. Memories blurred together: laughter, pain, hope. Tom turned to Jake, who looked equally vulnerable and resolute. Let us help, he urged, an unexpected strength surging in him. Are you serious? Jake looked at his brother, fear etched across his brow, but deep down, Tom could sense a flicker of the courage that resided within him, too. Yes. We can't just stand here. As they approached, Tom caught movement from the side. It was Sarah, weaving through the crowd. What is happening? She asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. There's been an accident, Tom replied, urgency rising in him again. We keep then let us do something, Sarah declared, positioning herself beside them resolutely, her fierce spirit like a flame in the dark. Working together, they moved toward the action, adrenaline pumping through their veins, hearts pounding in sync with the wails of sirens. Wasn't this the answer they sought, the chance to come together against the odds? The crowd whispered, eyes wide as they pulled their strength around that one fragile body lying still. Tom felt a softness creep in. He recalled how laughter once filled their home, a warmth igniting scattered memories, bringing one lost piece of joy back into focus. Come on, Jake. Let us focus. Tom called, breaking through the anxiety wrapping around them. We have to keep the energy up. Help us guide everyone. Whatever emotion had weighed down on them dissipated, replaced by a fierce resolution. They stepped forward, willing to take on the struggle together, and the strength of family rallied within them. I can do this. Jake exclaimed, his voice rising as he urged others to help direct traffic away from the emergency scene. Tom turned back to the paramedic. What can we do? The paramedic, still focused on the kid, didn't miss a beat. Keep the crowd back and stay calm. I'll need support when we move him. Understanding the task in front of him, Tom's heartbeat steadied. He glanced at Jake, urging him forward. We can do this, he whispered, building on the determination flooding the air. They stepped into action, organizing the chaos around them. They rallied courage. They were no longer just Tom, Jake, and Sarah, they were a united front, determined to meet the challenges ahead. The night stretched on, a tapestry of turmoil and transformation woven through their very souls. Hours later, as the sirens finally faded into the distance and lights dimmed, Tom gathered with his siblings and father, huddled close, comfort radiating between them like a warm blanket. Their hearts weighed heavy, but something beautiful had emerged from the ashes of worry. Together, they had faced pain, not just in the face of adversity, but opening up deeper connections, bridging the gap that had threatened to tear them apart. "Tom," Jake said softly, uncertainty tinged in his voice, "I didn't think we could do it. But maybe we can heal together." Tom's heart swelled with hope and understanding. "We've always been better together. Maybe it just took a little chaos to remind us." "Yeah," Sarah added, her smile breaking through the fatigue, "and maybe to finally face our truths, together." With that, the door closed softly behind their past woes and fears, leaving room for love and healing to emerge. Then, Tom turned to his phone, ready to reconnect with Megan. He needed to face that part of his past head-on too, no longer just for himself, but for all of them. Taking a deep breath, he dialed her number, ready for whatever came through, knowing he wasn't alone in this fight anymore. "Let's do this," he whispered as the phone began to ring, the echo of possibility racing through him. "Don't wait not even one more second to share your thoughts on this story. You need to comment your feelings below and let us know how it moved you. And if you want to be part of more adventures like this, subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of inspiration.